This is a rather improvised video about my newest project, a GT. Although it's not, there's no more label on it. I'm pretty sure it's a GT, and I'm also pretty sure it's either a Timberline or a Tequesta. It's got mainly STX components. The only non-STX components that I could find were the brake levers and gear changes, which are Altus, which is weird because the Timberline, I think that was it was some other component mix. It's also got this ergobar. I forgot the original name for it. Not really sure. I think it's aluminium. And a horrible paint job in this neon orange. It comes over a bit more yellowish on camera. I believe that the wheels are not original anymore. The wheels are Deore hub, and the front is Deore LX, but in not very good condition. My idea is to actually transfer most components from this bike. It's my previous project bike. It's a Merida Dakar, 1992, I guess, because it had mainly Shimano Exage LX 500 components. So middle top range components. It is a pretty nice bike. It could be slightly stiffer. What I don't like is that the rear, I mean, I'm standing far more behind the pedals than I usually like. It's pretty lightweight with all the modern components. For example, I changed all the head sets here. New handlebar, which is a Kyote, a Ritchey Kyote, and I also placed some barends, which are now innerbarends. Oxymoron, but it looks nearly like a Jeff Jones loop bar or something like that. And I think it's maybe a better idea than a Jeff Jones loop bar because you have far more ways to adjust the position angle of the handlebar itself, as well as the inner barends. I switched to Microshift Advent X, just like on my third bike, which is an old trekking bike. Got a Fact branding. Fact is a Japanese and Taiwanese bike parts importer. They usually sold these through dealerships, and quite rarely they put a brand on it. My guess is from the components that were on it that it's somehow early 2000s. But otherwise, similar components at Microshift Advent X. I also changed to with an head quill adapter. This one here is also a very nice handlebar. It's the Ergotech Riser 50 Comfort, and the Riser 50 Comfort has a relatively nice back sweep. Not as much as on the Kyote, but nearly. So they're very comparable. If you want slightly less and a slightly higher rise, go for the Ergotech. If you want a position that's more true to the original stem, then the Kyote is a very good choice. Both price-wise are pretty similar. Tire-wise, I also changed to modern tires. These are Schwalbe Billy Bonkers. I believe they are for dirt track racing, dirt tracks, and they're very nice, but as you see here, the treads are very small. They're very good for hard, sandy, slightly sandy, stony chipped surfaces. As soon as it's a bit more gravelish, loose gravel or mud or sand, really deep sand, then they're out of their depth. And this is the muddy season just starting, with the winter coming or autumn knocking at the door. These are not the right tires. I will really have to change because I had a few crashes that were simply because of the tires and no grip. On the same tracks, day earlier, day later, with these tires, not a problem. They are Schwalbe G1 Ultrabites. In the rear, it's a bit flat here, is 37 and the front is a 50. The rear, I couldn't just have a wider Ultrabite. If Schwalbe offered a 42-ish, 43-ish, that would be fine, but they only offered the 37, and then I found the 50. And I tried the 50 in the back, it's just no way. And even in the front fork, I can't fully inflate the 50, but it doesn't matter because it's just right. Of course, mud sticks now a little there, but otherwise I'm really, really happy with these tires, especially the front 50. It's a gravel tire, but if you look at the treads, this one looks much more like a mountain bike tire than a gravel tire. However, on this one here, I plan to choose even nicer ones. You don't find a lot of gravel tires for 26 rims. All they are really, really expensive. So niche market kind of manufacturers. Also because one of the things is that with the Merida, why I also want to change is I like the geometry for my kind of ergonomics, but I would like to have a slacker front. It's pretty steep, although if you check it out from here, you see that the handlebar and the grips are behind the hubs, but still it feels often as if I fall over. So there's this kind of momentum where you have an impression that you are falling over the front, and that's not a very nice one. Also, it's pretty nervous. I don't know why, and it doesn't feel really stiff or stiff enough. It's pretty compliant. Otherwise, I really like it. So you can get to nice speeds with it. The choice was to either modify it a little more, maybe have a longer fork and a bit of a wide angle, so have maybe a larger tire in front. Often these are called 69ers if it's a 26 on the back and the 29 in front. This would mean, of course, that I very likely would switch to a disc brake for the fork, for the front tire, front rim, which is fine. This bike, for whatever reason, doesn't brake as well, although there's the same brake components as this one here. Is much, much better braking on this bike. Maybe it's the rims, I don't know. Now I plan to do these modifications now on the GT as well. So first, I will take over all the components, the Microshift Advent X, the rims, the tires, everything, just switching it over. I will keep the crankset, will remove the front derailleur. I have no need for that anymore. I will not keep this. I'm not intending a retro bike restoration. I will really try to modify it to a modern bike, which also means then all the head components, the handlebar, the head, stem will go, and I will put more modern ones in front. But the geometry is a bit different, so very likely I will not have the same angles and lengths of the stem. The saddle will also go. I'm pretty sure that this one is not an original. I might keep the crank. It's looking actually better than the crank, or the crank that I have on the Merida. That one was the next big job. On this one, I might be able to delay it a little. If one of the purchases I will have to do are some tires, as I mentioned, and because I planned a bit of a mullet bike with maybe a 27.5 in front, or a 28 or a 29, if that wouldn't look too weird, if that would, or if it drives nicely. I would like to do it in a very understated way, so that it's not that obvious that I really have different rim sizes, front and rear. And in order to have this kind of seamless impression, I want tires that are looking pretty identical over the sizes, over the different sizes. And that's actually not that easy because many manufacturers have kind of a different set of tires models for the 26 range than for the 27.5 and 28, 29. 29ers and 27.5s are the more modern ones, and very often you find some kind of retro-inspired 26s. One of the brands, or two, I found two brands that I kind of like. Oh, yes, as you see with both bikes, I have tan wall or skin wall tires. I really like that. They're a bit retro. They have this really sweet look, and actually I think on the 28 it looks even better than on the 26. But if I have different tire sizes, this I think doesn't work. First of all, these tan wall tires, they make the tires look larger. And if I then have rather similar types of tires in front and rear, I think the front would look significantly larger than the rear and bigger. Also, I couldn't really find a manufacturer which would offer a similar type of model on 26 and 28 or 27.5 with tan walls. Continental might, but most of the Continentals I found, not on the website, but on their with dealers, they're black. They look okay. They have this weird looking sidewall that's perforated looking like, and I kind of like that. It's kind of skin. I don't know what the name for that is. But I found a tire set that I really rather like. I had Vittoria tires before on a road race bike, and I was really happy with them. They had a bit of a thread, and they were the largest tires I could fit on the bike, and all the other manufacturers failed. Vittoria did it with, and I think it was 25, which doesn't seem much, but for that bike it was, and was day and night with the Vittorias. I really loved them. And Vittoria is offering a really nice set that you could call a bit of a gravel set for a mountain bike. I think they're officially called CrossCountry XC or something. And they have two tires. One is called the Mezcal, and the other one is the Barzo, I think. The Barzo does have bigger knobs, and they even recommend to mix, so to have the bigger knobs and more grip on the front, and to have better roll resistance in the back with the Mezcal. And that's what I probably will do. And also they have a very similar look, the 26, 27.5 and 29ers. They do have a very slightly colored sidewall. They call it anthracite or anthracite. Most people who review them call it gray, but it's not a really light gray. And I think it will work really nicely when the paint is off and it's the bare metal and these types of tires. And I think that the look of these tires will also help to make the size differences between the tires, if I will, build it that way to make it look pretty understated or not that visible. So this is it. A much shorter video than the previous German one I did. Maybe it's the habit. So most of these modern components will be swapped to the GT, and I will probably sell the STX components that I put off. I may keep the brakes. They seem to be working really well for the rear tire, for the rear rim, sorry. I will try to see. I mean, if they don't work, then I will swap them to the nicer looking ones. I have the Techno. I think they're 700 or something, 710. Really nice classic looking ones. So hereby I close that video. I found that some people wanted these handlebars, so I will put them for sale as well. I'm not sure if I can keep this these grips. They seem original, but they are not really grippy anymore. They seem just like old rubber, and unfortunately they're not in the best condition either. So as this is in the head, I simply will remove it. I will If I can't remove the brakes, I may even leave them on for people who want to restore bikes and want to keep the grips. Let's see. Thank you, and until the next one.